The convoy had stopped. Engines coughed, tires sank slightly into the dust, and men exchanged glances heavy with frustration. They had been waiting for hours, the promised engineers nowhere in sight. Supplies were critical. Time was critical. Every passing minute felt like a whisper of danger pressing closer. And in the midst of it all, one figure knelt beside the stalled vehicle. Hands greasy, eyes focused, working in silence. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're rewatching from. I love knowing who's listening. His name was Elias, and he wasn't meant to be the hero of the hour. Not officially, not by rank, not by protocol. But he had a gift of quiet, unassuming talent that made engines roar to life. Machines dance and plans survive when chaos threatened to claim them all. And today, that gift was all that stood between the convoy and disaster. The sun bore down relentlessly, painting the landscape in harsh gold and deep shadows. Dust rose with every movement, settling into eyes, hair, and the tiny crevices of metal he meticulously inspected. Around him, voices muttered, some anxious, some scolding. They had been waiting for help that wasn't coming. Wait. And yet Elias did not flinch. He worked as if the world could wait, even though it couldn't. He thought about the lives depending on these engines. It's the children who relied on the supplies, the soldiers whose lives were tethered to mechanical reliability. Every bolt tightened, every wire reconnected, was a heartbeat in a machine that pulsed with human consequences. His hands shook slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of responsibility pressing against bones and sinew alike. The men watched him, some in disbelief, some in irritation. They didn't understand the rhythm of his work, the silent communion between man and machine. They saw the grease, the sweat, the quiet solitude. They didn't yet see the life he was coaxing back into the lifeless vehicle before them. Minutes stretched into eternity. Elias wiped his brow, listening to the faint ticks and murmurs of the engine, as if it were a patient speaking to a doctor. The convoy commander paced nearby, the air tense with urgency and doubt. He considered calling off the attempt, considering sending men into the sun-blistered terrain to find help. Every instinct screamed for immediate action. Every instinct except the one telling him to trust Elias. And then, a soft click, almost imperceptible, echoed through the air. The mechanic's hands paused, eyes narrowing. He adjusted a component, whispered a word only he could hear, and pressed a lever. The engine shuddered, then roared to life, a deep, steady heartbeat that resonated through metal and dust alike. The men froze. Shock, disbelief, and awe mingled on their faces. Some whispered, unable to voice the words fast enough. Others simply stared, realizing in that instant that everything they had been waiting for, the engineers. The rescue, the reinforcements, was no longer necessary. One man muttered under his breath, almost reverently, he did it. In silence, Elias didn't smile, he didn't boast. He only wiped his hands clean, his movements deliberate, calm. And yet, in that silence, there was a story being told. A story of perseverance, of quiet genius, of heroism that required no applause. The convoy commander approached, hesitant, searching for some official recognition, some way to express the weight of gratitude that words could barely contain. But Elias only nodded, small and almost shy, and returned to checking the other vehicles. The engine wasn't the only thing he fixed that day. He fixed belief, repaired doubt, and reminded everyone that not all heroes wore medals or commanded ranks. Some simply understood the quiet art of keeping the world moving. As the convoy prepared to move again, the air shimmered with dust and heat. Soldiers adjusted straps, engines rumbled, and the landscape seemed a touch less hostile, less impossible. And somewhere in the midst of the orchestrated movement, soft applause broke out, not loud, not boisterous, but genuine. They hadn't just seen a vehicle come back to life. They had witnessed a man defy expectation, rewrite possibility, and demonstrate that courage often wears grease-stained overalls instead of shining armor. Elias paused for a moment, looking at the convoy stretching behind him, then at the horizon where the sun bled gold into shadows. He thought about choices, about responsibility, about how sometimes the right thing isn't the easiest, isn't the most visible, and isn't recognized until the work is done. He had chosen silence over accolades, action over complaints, skill over hesitation. And in doing so, He had given them more than motion. He had given them hope. There was a moral tension here, subtle but palpable. Could a single man really hold so much weight of expectation of consequence, of unseen danger without faltering? Should he have waited for the engineers, obeyed protocol, or risked everything for an unguaranteed success? And yet, in the end, his choice was undeniable. Courage sometimes whispers, and when it whispers, it can save lives without a sound. The convoy rolled forward, engines humming in synchrony, a tide of movement powered by skill, determination, and silent bravery. Elias walked beside the first vehicle, dust clinging to boots, hands still slightly trembling, eyes scanning the horizon not for applause, but for the next problem he could solve. Because kindness doesn't vanish at weights, and it finds its way back. And as the sun climbed higher, illuminating dust motes dancing in the golden light, the quiet mechanic disappeared into the rhythm of the convoy, a reminder that heroism isn't always loud and sometimes the greatest. Acts are performed in the silence between chaos and motion. If this story inspired you, tell me in the comments which moment blew your mind. And don't forget to subscribe to Whispered Words for more stories of quiet courage and remarkable human resilience.